how business analysis is practiced today and where it's gonna be on the future, I'm trying to understand that, and for that I'm interviewing a set of key experts into business analysis, people who are really practicing business analysis in the trenches. And my guest today is passionate about leading and supporting the continual improvement of her colleagues, teams, process and systems to result in better outcomes for everyone. A senior BA that works with her customers, both technical and business facing, to help them produce fit-for-purpose solutions based on informed decision making. I welcome Greta Metz. Hello, Greta. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure and it's an honor. Greta, tell us a little bit about our background. How did you end up becoming a BA and what are you doing today?
Yeah, so I joined my company almost 25 years ago, coming up soon with my anniversary, and about 19 years ago I moved into IT. And I think my story is very similar to a lot of BAs, where you start in something related and you move acrosswards into BA because you're gravitating towards that kind of work. So I started as a BA writing business cases, coming across as a sort of special guest during the planning cycle. And then I loved it so much, and it really played into all of my strengths and the things that I would normally look to do anyway. So, I've been there for a long time now. Went from writing business cases back in the early days, where that's what we mainly did to buy off the shelf products and things, to doing more BAing around strategic enterprise portfolio level things, and also down into individual projects. So I've been a BA working on things like application development in our bespoke application development team at the time, as well as, putting in off-the-shelf products and moving into bigger ERP implementations and things like that as well. So I've done BAing at all different levels, and I've also had an opportunity to look at putting the BA skill set into practice in sort of related areas as well. So I think it's a typical BA thing. A lot of my colleagues coming into our company now have done a similar thing where they've moved across from something else into becoming a BA.
Right.
So yeah, that's my background in the area.
Yeah, that's interesting. And when you say that you covered business analysis in all different levels, how do you compare those different levels? What are the difference between them?
I think it's a different focus on what you're trying to get across the line. So as a BA, you're always that middle person. You produce something to feed in. It's very atypical that you actually produce the end product itself, and that's the combination of all the change. You're always feeding into another process. So moving across the different levels, it's a different set of stakeholders that you're going to be taking information from and feeding it across into it. So there's really different purposes. Looking at governance documents, it's usually about getting something approved and off and running to hand across to someone else. Whereas in projects themselves, you're really going from talking to users and stakeholders to getting to that end product where they've signed off and said, yes, this is what I want. And you can see things humming, or in some cases you can see things that have stopped. So yeah, there's a lot of different areas you work in, and especially I've been doing some BAing, like applying those analytical skills to go into projects and do sort of assessments of what's happening and look at places we need to put more focus.
Okay. And if you could assemble the business analysis purpose and values in a sentence, or try to define what business analysis brings for an organization as a whole in all three levels. Let's try to understand it broadly.
It's always around, it's like being a buyer's advocate. So you're working with your client who has specific hopes and dreams and wants, and they can't necessarily articulate all those specifics at the start. And it's synthesizing what they're looking at and what they feel and what they need, and translating that into language that the person who's going to provide that service directly to them can understand. And then you're acting as their advocate. So you are their like avatar through to the project team, the technical side, and you're the avatar of the technical side back to the business person. So it's not just an interpreter thinking about it like the UN where they just say what's happening. This person said this person said this. You're providing that extra layer where you're acting for that person, for their hopes and dreams and wants and the vibe of what they're going to get out of it. So the value that it really offers is that you know yourself, if you've been involved in any sort of project, if you let a technical person talk to a business person, you have a language difference, you have terminology, you have cultural differences. You're not going to get anything similar to what the person was wanting in reality. So it's that translation layer really that's very important, and you see patterns that other people don't see. You can articulate it down to a level that everybody can clearly understand, and that's not a common practice. People don't usually say exactly what they mean, and you need to be able to extract that information out of them and understand it and join the dots together. So that's really where it's like a value add function.
I like the idea of being an avatar for different stakeholders when you're dealing with each other and trying to help them to articulate what they really need. It's not about defining their needs, it's like helping them to articulate that need and their position.
And writing it in the language of the person that has to understand it and use that information. So not just leaving it, we have different groups in our business, and they'll use the word plant. And plant means 6 different things. And when you hear them talking to one another, and you're like, you're not talking about the same thing at all, and you don't even realise it. So it's great to see when you can spark off that when they go, oh, that is what I want. You've really helped me to dig into what I really want and need. And that's fantastic when that light goes off in their eye.
Cool. Like a moment of truth, a shiny moment where, oh, that's what I was trying to explain, or even that's what I needed and I didn't want. And I didn't know that before. So you are helping me to understand my own thoughts here. And that makes a lot of sense. In some senses, sounds like a therapist, a business therapist or something like that, right?
It can be like that, absolutely. And it's interesting too, when you talk to people, you have to be able to ask why, in 1,000 different ways, listening to the question that they've asked and be able to sort of steer it back around to go, you're not quite giving me the answer I need, you're answering a different question. So being able to direct people, and gently and empathetically and compassionately and, all the things, but also to be able to be direct enough.
Nice.
So,
Let's try to bring this for a very specific lens, trying to see how you work. So how business analysis is practiced in your organization? How is your day-to-day? If I would see Greta working in her environment, what would I see? I would see Greta producing some documents, or would I see you doing meetings? So how does business analysis practice in your organization? What's the way of working?
Yeah, so we have a BA playbook where we talk about all the different types of activities and deliverables. So you might have a deliverable that you actually get a thing out and there's activities to feed into that, but there might just be activities that's the whole point of it as well. So we have a playbook that we put together, and when we come onto a project, we'll go through and come up with a BA plan that says, my approach will be, I think we need one of those, and I want to run workshops for that, and I want to talk to those people. So we give people a bit of a catalogue, like our quote for what we're intending to do. And then, so today I was running workshops around governance documents to come up with, business benefits and requirements, and we do estimations and talk to people, had some discussions with someone and said, but what difference would that make to the business if we fixed that? Why do we want to do that? Why have you prioritised it that way? What would happen if you didn't get it? So having those kind of conversations with people to get the type of information that I need out to write that governance document. So I was doing that today. I was also running some training today with some end users about compliance requirements and what it meant to them. So we have one group of people that own the system that they want to connect to. So we were giving them some training to say, this is how you need to use your new tool to make sure you're compliant. And I was also just working on updating our playbook as well with some new artifacts coming in. So it's a lot of meetings with people, thinking, documenting, taking some time. I like to do sort of rough drafts of things, then put it aside for a few days to have a bit of time to think and have things connect in my brain, because I'm definitely a person who likes to build some sort of model that I can fit information in, and it's an easier way. I use a lot of anecdotes, use things like, say, it's like this, it's like this kind of role to to help people hook into my way of thinking as well. So that's a lot of my days. Yeah, a lot of meetings, really.
I'm curious about the playbook, the business analysis playbook. That sounds interesting to me. I have two questions for you. First question is the playbook Greta's playbook, or is the company playbook and Greta is just using it? And the second question is how this playbook has evolved during the last decade. Is it the same that do you still do business analysis on the same way you use it to do, or is it changing?
So our playbook, it's an interesting question. Is it Greta's or the organisation? It is the organisation's. Did Greta do the first draft of it last year? Yes, she did, based on some earlier notes. So it has changed dramatically. The biggest changes come through when we've got expanded our IT team. So different specialist roles coming on board. So we have to adjust some of the things that we do. We might pass some of the responsibilities to other teams. So the playbook is like our cut across the whole project life cycle that we work in. So other groups have their playbooks as well, and it shows us, what I produce, what it then feeds into. There's descriptions about what each of the deliverables, what the, I guess the gist of it is, like what's the vibe, what's the point of it, and some description around, you can do things in different ways, but you need to fulfill this purpose, what they feed into, and roles and responsibilities. And that's always changing as we do organisational restructures and new titles and new names and things like that. It has adjusted a lot over time, and there's been a bigger recognition of the fact that we fit into an ecosystem. So every time the people in the ecosystem or the processes or the functions change, we do an update to the playbook, And we also have just practical things for people. So when someone comes on board and they're a new BA, you can say, here's our playbook, here's where you get the templates from, here's the descriptions, here's some videos about people taking you through templates, here's good examples across different ranges of things. So, but having it as a formalised playbook, that was an initiative from my manager that said we really need to write something out so that we can communicate it to the other groups as well. It's very much a BA kind of thing. Let's take the chaos, let's put it into some sort of structure, and then we can push that out to people. So it was written by me, but it was, that's just because I happen to be the author on that side of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to have a BA trying to understand how business works and writing the playbook. I wonder how the work of the business analyst has changed over the last few years, and where do you see changing in the future? So, and I believe the playbook is a nice place to use it because it's very tangible. So you are someone who is really defining how business analysts work and looking forward. So what changes have you done through the last couple of years on the role of the business analyst, and what do you see for the future?
So since I started, the BA role seemed to be this, it was just words. What does it do? Nobody knew. You just needed a BA. And we did everything. We were like the jack of all trades. First of all, you had just a project manager and they did everything. And then you had a technical person. You supplemented a BA into that team. So suddenly the project manager just did certain things and the BA did everything in the middle. So what we've done in the last few years is really expanded out our other linked teams in IT. So we've brought on lots more testers, organisational change management people, architects, lots of other resources have come in, which has meant the BA's gone from more of a generalist role that just filled in all of those related things into doing more specifically BA work. And we've shifted towards, rather than being sort of a general resource on a project where you do your own things, but then you also fill in for everybody else, we've switched to doing a lot more in-depth business analysis to be able to really feed into those other roles, because when you've got a solution architect coming on board, they need requirements. We haven't had that before, so we haven't had to, provide that level of detail for those other groups to consume. But now with expanding out the teams, people can see the value of having better quality, deeper business analysis artifacts because they can feed really well into those other teams. So that's probably the biggest changes that we've made across our organisation. But what it's also meant is we've done a lot of work with bringing in AI and how we can use those tools across our base as well. So it's meant that we've taken a lot of time-consuming work that somebody had to do, and it was usually the BA, and we've shortcutted a lot of that. So we've been able to then spread across more projects, but also to be able to spend that energy in sort of high-level business analysis skill set. So the type of thinking and analysis and pattern recognition that we can do, and be able to spend that energy sort of in that higher level thinking as well. So that's been a big change. So the type of expectations of the expertise that a BA will have has certainly heightened as we've got more tools as well, because you don't just have to, churn. Something that could have taken me 3 days before I can do in a few hours by, asking good old AI, what would you do? What are the standard features of this? What would your draft of acceptance criteria be? I've leaned into it pretty heavily and even said, like, this is the capability we're trying to put in. These are the user stories I have. Can you suggest any other user stories that might be applicable to that? Can you write me a new set of, acceptance criteria and doing adjustments and things like that? And then being able to put that next level of thinking in, because you've got a bit more capacity to do that, and to be able to review that and shape it. So it's led to, I guess, as the tools get better, there's greater expectations as well of what we can use our skill set for to raise the quality, but also allow us to do more business analysis across more projects in general.
When you mentioned the change that happened during, let's say, the last decade, it's interesting because you say we started this, there was just a project manager, then the BA would have to do a lot of stuff, everything else. And I see that very common in organizations that become more mature. So as a maturity grows into an organization, you have more experts into different areas because your company grows. You can have an expert in enterprise architecture, you can have an expert in quality, you can have an expert in different tasks of your organization. And so the BA would have to adapt, not to do those other stuff because you have an expert over there, but trying to fulfill those different points. And we see that happening in many organizations. I believe that that's normal for an organization who evolves, who becomes more mature, to get more experts on different areas. And so the business is less a generic role and become a more expert role. And now you're saying that with AI, even some tasks that were very core to the business analysis job, like writing requirements, stories, or acceptance criteria, you were using AI to do that. And so the level of what the business analysts have to do is growing. He's becoming a more expert into business analysis and not in writing stuff.
Absolutely.
You have to level up your business analysis skills. I have two questions about that. The first one is, what are the junior BAs are going to do in the future if we're using AI to do what they use it to do? And what's the difference between a junior and a senior position in business analysis?
Yeah, I think what the juniors will start by doing is that they'll be able to take advantage of all the experience that's gone before them to jump straight to that as a starting point. So they'll be using those tools and be able to come in and do a higher level of work to start with without needing to do the grind and working up as many years of experience and things like that. So I guess it's like if you were starting off, in the olden days, you could be a movie star or you were making a movie and you had a whole team of people. And now you've got people on YouTube that are, creating their own videos, doing their own hair and makeup, backgrounds, you're doing editing, all the other things. So the juniors will be able to come in and they've got a better understanding too of all the different places that they can use that expertise, I think, than we did in the olden days where we had to sort of push into those areas. So I think they'll be doing a lot more work as well on how they can use those tools and, I guess, understanding when you have to do a review of it, because AI will give you really good quality information if the really good quality information exists and is accessible to you. But where it doesn't, they'll be doing a lot more work on looking at this looks a bit AI or this isn't quite right. So it'll be a different skill set that they start exercising as they come on board rather than what we had to do of, what's the exact way you do this type of diagram or some other type of diagram or this table or something like that. That won't be their kind of role. I think the difference between the junior and the senior business analyst is really a lot of the time that level of confidence, understanding what's core, what's key, what works, where to push for more detail where it's not needed, and having that confidence to be able to back yourself as well, to be able to draw lines in the sand. We need this because you're dealing with a lot of people as a BA in the business, whatever your business is, whatever core function thing that they do, and they've never been a part of any type of IT project before. So you're educating them when they come on board of this is the processes we need to do, this is the type of diagrams, this is what they mean, this is the language, this is the terminology that we use, these are the kind of things you'll be involved in, this is what your role is, and you're doing that with people. So as a senior BA, it's really important that you have a really good grasp and understanding of where to use different types of tools and where to draw the line, where to pull people up to you and where to push them beyond you. So when you're pushing and pulling and how hard you can press and where you can hold the line and where you can have compromises. But as a junior BA, you're just usually in there like you're collecting things, what people tell you. Whereas when you move to a more that senior layer, it's more about eliciting, it's digging underneath the covers, being able to see where things connect at a more guttural level, if that makes sense. Building up that instinct and expertise and really being able to drive people as well. So drive that good outcome, be able to hold your ground and say, no, I need more detail, or no, you're trying to do something that doesn't mesh with that. So being able to sort of, be that more out front person rather than being a more submissive person. When you just think, well, I don't really know anything about this and I haven't done that before and I'm not sure of myself. It's really having that self-confidence to be able to understand this is where we need to get to. These are the compromises we can do, and having that confidence to understand where you're going to get a good result and where you're going to go over the top or undercook things.
Confident experience makes a lot of sense, and usually when you have done this work for a while, you become a little savvy about how things should be done, what's wrong, and you can identify
Absolutely.
opportunities and gaps easily and aggregate more value. That makes a lot of sense. If you could list a list of competences that you would expect, let's say you're hiring a senior BA, right?
Yep.
And you are creating the requirements for this hiring. What requirements would you list in this list of competences?
Okay, so what I'd be looking for is 4 main areas, and they're not in any particular order because it depends on, the situation they're put in. But someone first and foremost probably who is happy working in a bit of chaos, who enjoys that energy, who likes to go in and goes, wow, that's a meaty problem, because they need to be able to gather all of those people that have not been involved in anything like this and impose some structure over the top. So quite often they're the first person parachuted in, can you go get some requirements? And you need to be able to thrive on that energy of going in and saying, I'm going to get a lot of people from a lot of different ranges of, experience, backgrounds, the understanding of what they want and need. Someone's going to come in and tell you, I want to be able to do this thing, but with one less click. Through to, a business person who's telling you I need to drive a 30% cost reduction, for example. So someone who likes that chaotic side, and that's certainly that's what I like. Going in raw in that and harnessing that energy to put that structure in. So that's one of the things. Another thing is someone who's a really good listener. And what I mean by listener is that I'm listening to the things that you're saying, the specific words, I'm digging in, and I'm following that through as an investigator, but I'm also checking back with you to make sure that I understand what you've said. So there's nothing worse than someone coming up and telling you, I've solved your problem, and you're like, you've solved a problem. It's not my problem. You heard one word and you spun off this whole story of what was happening and what I thought and felt. You weren't actually listening to me. So that's a really important thing. Probably the third thing is to be able to talk to different people at different levels and to meet them where they're at. And I don't mean like dumb things down so a 6-year-old can understand and things like that. I mean, look at the person, their background, what they're interested in. So, you want to be able to go into a meeting with an executive and have a good idea about what their drivers are, what they're looking for, and be able to pitch something to them so they know why they're there. So I don't go and talk to a field person about a whole lot of things happening in the back office because the field person doesn't care. It doesn't affect them. So you need to be able to message to the person that you're talking to so that you're asking the right questions and getting the point across and you're getting information back, but that you can switch between those levels and put yourself in the headspace of what do they want to know, what are they interested in, and how can I effectively communicate in their language. That's a really important thing. Probably the last thing, and I did write some notes down about this, was someone who, especially if you're looking for a senior, someone who can train and uplift the people around them. So if they're going in, they've got a structure, a way that they want to work, that they can bring across people into that structure. So they can talk about, represent, I'm going in, I want to do this, this, and this, quite clearly communicate that. They might negotiate with a project manager who says, oh, no, I want to do something else, but that they come in with their own set of knowledge and expertise and systems that they can then adapt to where they are. But they need to be able to communicate that system and why they're doing things to the people around them as well. So that's quite important. I would rather someone come in with a full set of ideas about how they want to work, and then we can pick apart and replace all of those things. But if they don't have the ability to sort of, talk to people and take them through what they're doing and why they're doing it, and, train the other person in their system and thought processes, even if they have to change and do, adapt to something else, that's really hard because they won't win other people over. And they're not very good at adapting to the situation you're in, because as a BA, my ideal would be, all right, no requirements at all. That would be fantastic. But I can't do that because we won't get an outcome. So I want to write as little as possible. And what I mean is I want to understand that everything I do, what is the purpose, and make it fit for purpose. So I can't afford to spend a whole lot of money going and writing a whole lot of detail out that no one will ever use. And they say, oh, no, I didn't need that at all, but I needed this other thing you didn't do for me. So I want to make sure that we're really fit for purpose. But you do need to be able to, I guess, not necessarily train, but communicate to people why you're trying to do something in a specific way, and to be able to skill up the people that we're working with so that they're going to get a good outcome.
I love it, the list. So let me see if I got it right. First one is being able to work into the chaos. So being comfortable with complexity, I would call
Absolutely.
In another way. Second one is being able to listen. So be a good listener and not just listen, but validate what you're listening, understanding, validating your assumptions, trying to understand what is the real need behind what you're listening. Sometimes you have to make questions to listen better.
Yeah.
Third one is communicate with different layers and put yourself in the same language they're using and try to adapt, because you're speaking with different people, as you said, sometimes as an avatar for another area, so you have to put yourself in the shoes of others to communicate. That's perfect. And the last one is about how you explain things for people, how you communicate in the simplest way as possible. So it's not about making a lot of documents. It's about to simplify this complexity in some way people can understand and create the minimum documentation or the minimum communication needed with everything that people need to understand. That's a very nice list.
Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you very much. I enjoyed very much this conversation with, and I'm sure people who are watching us today is enjoying it as well. If they want to know more about you or connect with you, change ideas, how can they find you?
Probably the best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn. So I'm there under Greta Metz. It's a bit sparse, my profile at the moment, but I'll be adding some things in very soon.
Perfect. It's gonna be I'm going to take you some time to update your LinkedIn profile, because this episode is going to be live in a few weeks, but I will add below this video a link for your LinkedIn so people can just click and connect with you directly. Thank you very much for joining us today, Greta.
Thanks so much. It's been great.
And if you joined this conversation, stay tuned, because some other conversations are coming on the next weeks about how business analysis is being practiced today and where we're going with this professional. See you around, Greta.
Thanks very much.